with testing, it's often seen as a technical validation step.
Yeah,
And you describe it as a rehearsal for real work.
correct.
But what does that look like in practice?
Well, I think there is always a testing piece, of course, that is to validate the system functionality and make sure that the system functions as intended. At the same time, you've probably seen that as well. You have very often, or you see very often during testing that people raise tickets because they think that the system isn't working. And sometimes they're right, but sometimes these are really false positive tickets where the end users test the system, but compare it with with their current ways of working, not having understood what is actually the future design behind it. And so they start raising tickets. So testing for me is a moment to where you do want to avoid these false positive, but at the same time, as you said, also use the testing phase already as, yeah, I like this term, as a rehearsal for the future state. So that powerful testing actually does feel like people do the real work already long before they change into the system. And I think I'm sure you've also seen UAT or sessions where users simply click here and enter data there, and then they confirm the result, and then they follow the test script and everything's done. And technically, it may pass perfectly, but there's very little learning actually happening during testing. And again, for me, that's an adoption moment that if you don't take it, you're missing a real opportunity, because then go live comes, the operational pressure hits, and suddenly people face the real situations again that they have not practiced before. And that's, I think, what you can do differently in testing. So when we are approaching it and we are giving the opportunity to do testing differently, then we're changing the approach, meaning instead of giving people these isolated scripts that they just execute like monkeys almost, we basically create full operational scenarios. And that includes, for example, scenarios where, I don't know, like an unexpected order arrives and suddenly the customer orders something I hadn't planned for. And then the planning has to react to it, and the production has to change priorities, and maybe procurement has to make some adjustments also to their schedule. And so suddenly, already during testing, people understand, oh, this is actually interesting because we now have to work very differently together in real time, exactly as we would after go live when we work in the system, but much earlier so that we can actually start thinking about it. And the funny thing is that when you do testing like that, it actually does and has to almost feel chaotic at the beginning, because people, step back and say, oh, but okay, who owns what decision now? And why does the process stop here? It was before like that. And what happens when I don't know, when I'm missing a supply date, and where do I enter this? So it becomes suddenly very real. And that's what you want. And of course, with these conversations that then already happen during testing, where you rehearse the future state, then over time, even in multiple recurring sessions, you see that the confidence is already, again, literally growing, because people become faster, they can reduce escalations already then, and they really stop looking at their script and just following it blindly, to thinking through what is actually changing here and what are we doing differently. So yeah, I would say the best programs really use testing as a rehearsal, dress rehearsal for the future business, and not just as a validation checkpoint for good system design.